Bienvenue à tous.
Welcome back to our 200th edition of Business Africa. Now, 6 months of debt relief have been granted to 25 countries considered the poorest in the world by the International Monetary Fund. The institution will redirect these funds towards the fight against the coronavirus pandemic. 19 of the 25 are African countries, chosen based on the extreme poverty and vulnerability ranking. Erica Josia Marquette and Erica Teng report.
The International Monetary Fund, IMF, has announced it would provide immediate debt relief to 25 countries considered to be some of the poorest in the world. The financial aid will enable these states to reduce their debt burden and better cope with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Out of the 25 countries, 19 of them are from the African continent. The fund will cover the repayment of their debt to the IMF for 6 months, with possible extensions up to 2 years. These countries have been chosen on the basis of poverty and vulnerability, natural or public health disasters with disastrous consequences. This debt relief will be channeled through the Disaster Response and Assistance Trust Fund. Earlier this week, the IMF's Executive Board approved $444 million in aid to Senegal and $147 million to Gabon in response to the coronavirus pandemic.
The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, has agreed to reduce production by 9.7 million barrels per day over the next 2 months. This will strengthen oil prices after a historic fall caused by a drop in demand due to the coronavirus crisis. A measure that will affect countries like Algeria, already on the brink of financial collapse and heavily reliant on the hydrocarbon market. Serge Kofi and Nyasha Mtizwa tell us more. The volatility of the hydrocarbon markets in Algeria has put the national economy under pressure. The country, which is dependent on oil revenues, is already facing a political upheaval coupled with health emergency, and a serious economic crisis looms. According to experts, a reduction in the world supply of crude oil by 10 million barrels per day in May and June to halt the fall in prices could only have a short-term impact on Algeria. The 2020 finance law was banking on a $50 barrel for growth of around 1.8%. The country is nowhere near this. Foreign exchange reserves are rapidly drying up. The budget deficit and the balance of payments are worsening. The local currency dinar is being sharply devalued and inflation is on the rise. Foreign exchange reserves fell below $60 billion at the end of March, compared to $79.88 billion at the end of 2018. Reserves that could run out in the short term. To tackle this alarming situation, the government has announced a 30% cut in the state operating budget without affecting the salaries of civil servants. The country's huge import bill has also been slashed from 41 to 31 million US dollars. Well, that's the end of this edition of Business Africa. Thank you for joining us. Let's continue the conversation on social media at Africanews and at Africanews FR for French. Keep it here on Africanews. Until next time.